let's start the show. When I play video games, I do so to experience a story, to get attached to characters, and to go on a journey. Like a partner in crime, I'm with them the entire way, and get to experience every moment of joy, anger, pain, and misery they experience during the telling of the story. When I review games, my objective is to cover the experience as a whole. On occasion, I like to dissect the individual parts of a game, showing the incredible accomplishments that make it great, while also highlighting bad decisions and imperfections that can ruin it. While I admit it is a balancing act, it's still the basis of what I do. Journalism. I try my best not to write fluff pieces and to pick favorites. If you want that, go watch Young Yeah. Now that I've said that disclaimer, Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah, I don't think I'm ready for this, but if I'm going to dig my own grave, I better start shoveling. Rockstar is a company that is known for creating vast, well-written single-player campaigns. However, for some unexplained reason, they like to add online features that drag down the overall experience. Today, we're going to dissect how the inclusion of Red Dead Online does just that. Saddle up and ride with me as I cover Red Dead Redemption 2 one last time. Yeah! Red Dead Redemption 2 is an action-adventure game from Rockstar. It was released on October 26, 2018 onto the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. It was produced by Rob Nelson and written by Dan Houser, Michael Unsworth, and Rupert Humphreys. I'm going to stop making the Western voice primarily because it'll eventually snowball and I'll start doing Sean Connery and I won't be able to keep going and maintaining it without laughing and having to do a million takes. So I'm just going to do what I normally do. Cool? Cool. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a story of violence, of hard times that came at the end of the Wild West, of modernization paving over the bloody lawlessness of the past, of death, of love, and above all else, redemption. Our protagonist is Arthur Morgan, the right-hand man to Dutch Vanderland and his gang of criminal outlaws. Trying to lay low after a robbery job goes south, Arthur's journey will take him all across the United States, and technically parts of Cuba, while dodging the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Yet despite their attempts, misfortune and violence shall befall this group at every turn. Depending on the player's choices, Arthur can live with the mistakes of his past and attempt to do right, or continue down a path of violence and self-destruction. It goes without saying that I am a fan of Red Dead Redemption 2. Its story is incredible, and its characters are diverse while being incredibly flawed people. Although, I significantly doubt that people like Dutch and Arthur would be so progressive in a pre-civil rights era. I say this as a person writing in the 21st century. We're still pretty racist right now, but I digress. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an open-world sandbox. Parts of the game will be blocked behind story progress, but despite that, you can do a vast amount of activities. Want to rob, loot, and pillage? Go nuts! Want to live off the land by hunting and fishing? More power to you. Casinos, five-finger fillet, mysteries, collectibles, and crafting. It's all there. However, for a game that is supposed to be about being a famous outlaw, it's odd you can't rob banks outside of story missions. As someone who plays Payday 2, being able to successfully pull off a bank robbery is an adrenaline rush. More so if you can do it in stealth. While Red Dead Redemption 2 does allow you to rob a train, magically teleporting officers of the law makes it disappointing and not something I would recommend. The fact that enemy AI instantly recognizes Arthur despite wearing a face mask is one of the many problems which prevents me from immersing myself in Red Dead Redemption 2. That being said, the combat of Red Dead Redemption 2 is quite enjoyable with a mix of dual-wielding pistols or revolvers on top of two shoulder weapons like repeaters, shotguns, and sniper rifles, allowing loadout variety. However, there is an issue where you may have two rifles equipped while on horseback, only to find the game has stored them in the saddle once you dismounted. This will wind up with you only having pistols and revolvers equipped, thereby forcing you to run back to your horse so you can grab your shoulder weapons from the saddle. Aside from guns, the fist-fighting mechanics are addictive. You have a typical block, punch, grab setup, but a lot of combat is focused around waiting for the right time to counter your opponents. It sounds simple, but actually requires a fair bit of patience. Personally, I thoroughly enjoyed getting into fistfights and feel Rockstar has drastically improved the mechanics from its first attempt in Grand Theft Auto 4. The audio of Red Dead Redemption 2 is well mixed. I never felt like there were any glitches or moments where characters were lost over background music.
Most of the game uses its own in-house music compared to licensed. When the player eventually does hear a licensed track, it adds significance to the scene where it's involved in. Less is more when it comes to music, and the Rockstar developers did a fantastic job. Every voice actor I encountered deserves a round of applause, especially Roger Clark as Arthur Morgan, Benjamin Byron Davis as Dutch Vanderland, Robert Wiedoff as John Marston, etc., etc., etc. You know the score, so let's move on. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a fantastic single-player experience, a game which gripped me from start to finish. Yet despite all of its work, it is mired by controversy. Now don't get me wrong, Rockstar has always been a controversial game studio. Some of the younger viewers might not remember disbarred attorney Jack Thompson, a man who essentially targeted Rockstar since the release of Grand Theft Auto 3. His arguments being games like GTA 3, Bully, Manhunt, on top of many others were corrupting youths to commit horrible acts of violence. With Red Dead Redemption 2, we're getting a different brand of controversy. One that can't be hidden away, and as a result, we're going to talk about it. Rockstar co-founder Dan Houser slipped in an interview that he and his writing team were working 100-hour weeks trying to get the game ready for its arbitrary launch date. As a result of this,
Kotaku decided to conduct a journalism.
Sorry, last time, I swear. And discovered not only a crunch prioritizing culture of fear, but also sexual assault allegations involving former vice president of project development, Geronimo Barrera. Look, I know I'm not Jim Sterling, but at the same time, it would be a massive disservice to not talk about this in retrospect. Everyone who was going to buy the game has already bought it, so put on your big boy pants and let's do this. As someone who works in film and television, there are times when a production will run quite long. Since most film and TV productions are union work, we go in expecting the risk, and our unions take preparatory measures to ensure that we're being looked after, that craft services keep us fed, that legal is there in case a production decides to shortchange us, that we can refuse work that is deemed unsafe. Basically, that we have a voice in the event we need to report the production for possible abuse against staff. Video game developers don't get that. They are non-union, and as such, their employers hold a ridiculous amount of power over them. They might not be holding a gun to your head, but should you decide to not work overtime which is unpaid if you have a salaried position, or possibly take a sick day, all of a sudden, you're seen as someone who isn't a team player. Your life essentially belongs to the company, and if you want to have a life outside of work, you shouldn't be working there. If Red Dead Redemption 2 decided to delay the game further instead of running their employees ragged, they would be praised for it. Sure, Rockstar might take a minor hit from shareholders and receive death threats from impatient fans, but the long-term gains would be worth it compared to short-term losses. Rockstar unfortunately doesn't live by that philosophy, and will wring their employees for every bit of labor they can. Once again, creating a culture where if you don't want to work as hard as everyone else, maybe you're not a team player and maybe you don't belong here. When I was making my first season of Always Write Reviews, I was dealing with the aftermath of a breakup. I couldn't eat, I couldn't really sleep, so I would just work on editing these videos until I got too exhausted to function. I put myself through that because I couldn't afford therapy, and looking back on it, it was an incredibly unhealthy thing to do, which is why I think game devs need a union. Thank you for coming to my dead talk. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a tale of two games. While its single player is a compelling tale of cowboys at the end of the Wild West, its multiplayer is quite frankly an afterthought. It's Rockstar's way of getting more money from their player base via microtransactions. Brief note, the last time I played Red Dead Redemption 2 was June 3rd, 2020, which means I probably am missing some new features, but keep in mind I was playing Red Dead Online 2 years after its launch, and I found it to be an unbelievable waste of time. Rockstar originally just intended this to be a small feature where players murder each other just like they do in most of their other online games. They didn't have a coherent plan, and as a result, were severely lacking in features. Due to fan pushback, they are attempting to add more to it, but I am still not convinced. At the time of my playthrough, Red Dead Online offered 3 basic roles, such as the bounty hunter, the trader, and the collector. They also included a moonshining role, which once again didn't really offer much variety. In order to unlock these features, you need to spend premium currency in the form of gold bars. You can unlock gold bars through grinding out incredibly long patches of base game missions and completing daily tasks. The daily task model is a mobile game strategy to get players psychologically addicted and to keep coming back. For example, a lot of the daily bonus multipliers reset if you spend 1 day not playing Red Dead Online. Plenty of the game is based around the anxiety of FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. For example, having limited run events that lock player customization features if you don't get them in time. From a design perspective, this is all focused so players can spend money to buy gold bars. A slow drip of in-game economic water torture, making it so that players spend cash, so they don't have to spend long hours grinding. Even when you unlock the gold required to try out the available roles, it's meaningless busy work that once again turns into a grind. Playing as a trader is primarily fun since it requires you to go out and hunt, making sure that you get good quality pelts to build up a production bar. When the bar is full enough, you get the ability to make a delivery run and sell the goods for cash, which can be used to buy items and gear outside of gold bars. First things first, the problem I have with hunting is a result of where you decide to put up your base camp. There are a few locations in the world that will give you bigger animals which can fill up your production bar faster. If other players take those spots, your camp will not be able to spawn and instead will return back to your inventory. I went close to 20 minutes of trying to set up a base camp only to just cave and choose a location no one was using. Speaking of server activity, when I was playing, I experienced a bug in which depending on the amount of players in a server, it can prevent animals and resources from spawning. This turned the game into an even worse experience. Now, the one thing I need to say is that other players are the sole reason why I hate the trader role. When you decide to make a delivery, you can choose to either go the safe route that will give you half the bonus but you won't run into other players, or a longer route where the game will then allow other players to come across you. In the event they choose to kill you, they may take your goods to the delivery route and take the bonuses for themselves. This delivery run can take an entire hour, maybe longer, of mining resources just to have it stolen. I have been both the player who has lost their goods as well as the player who has stolen the goods off of other players. I'm just gonna say, I didn't enjoy being either. The scale of power is overwhelmingly tipped towards the aggressor rather than those trying to peacefully exist. This is a problem that I find not only permeates Red Dead Online, but also Grand Theft Auto Online. You got mine toxicity is what exists in Rockstar Online communities, which actually kinda sums up the majority of the fanbase. Playing Red Dead Online was the first I have ever been called an insult that I refer to as BAN, an abbreviation that stands for bitch, ass, and I cannot say that last word because I'm white. When you decide to play the bounty hunter missions, you don't get much in terms of variety. Go to a random location and try to capture your targets. If you're lucky, you can bring them in alive. If you have multiple targets and no prison cart, you might have to kill them and attempt to drag their corpses to the location. Most likely, you'll run out of time and wind up having to fail the mission. Now, the collector role is not worth it. During the time I played it, I randomly picked up items that went towards monetary rewards. I didn't care. It's the weakest of the three roles, and Xbox got it for free. As much as I am more PlayStation-sided, I honestly feel sorry for Xbox players. You guys got ripped off. Shortly thereafter, Rockstar released a Moonshiner role, and frankly, it's another version of the trader. While the Moonshiner does incorporate its own story missions, it's still composed of going out to collect ingredients. Once you have enough, you wait for the moonshine to be made anywhere between 15 to 45 minutes until finally going out on a delivery run. Just like being a trader, placing your moonshine operation in a location with good ingredients means everything. While I greatly enjoy aspects of running a business, Red Dead Online is really just tedious busy work while hoping other players don't try to grief you. In Red Dead Online, there are also Showdown Modes in which you can have either a team deathmatch or free-for-all variants, but after about a few matches, you'll probably want to play something else. Which is frankly a shame, however, after spending countless hours in the single-player campaign, it kinda makes me tired of more killing. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an enjoyable single-player experience with a mediocre multiplayer mode tossed on. Frankly speaking, if Rockstar decided to remove it from the game, I probably would have had a better opinion of it. If they decided to release Red Dead Online later after fixing bugs and making sure they had more than just a Skinner box of grinding for premium currency, I probably would have given it a recommendation to those who are interested. However, Rockstar had one shot to land a good first impression, and they missed the mark. To the point where I'd even say Genshin Impact was a better multiplayer experience than Red Dead Online. I guess what I'm trying to say is,
I'm SonicMTD, and I'm tired of beating this dead horse.
This video was proudly supported by Unsung Heroes of Patreon.
Hey there, Matthew Taddaleo, better known as SonicMTD, saying thank you so much for catching my small little one-shot episode on Red Dead Redemption 2 and how the inclusion of Red Dead Online actually kind of further drags down the overall experience. If you liked the video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and if you have any critiques or suggestions, leave them in the comments down below so that I may grow. If you look up here on this side of the webpage, it'll be a video that is usually recommended by YouTube that you might enjoy, and down here is going to be a playlist of my previous episodes. So if this is the first time seeing me, maybe you want to see more of me. Either way, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. My name is Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD. Arigato gozaimasu, and later days.